Hello, I'm Dr. Jane McCartney. I'm a chartered psychologist in the UK, and I have an absolute fascination with all things criminal and all things true crime. In this episode of the Psychology of Crime series that I'm doing on YouTube, I wanted to look at the case of Chris Watts. Now, he's a very well-known case across the entire internet, and there's tons of stuff on YouTube to go out and have a look at. Before I get into the case, if I could please ask you to like and subscribe, please. It just helps the channel enormously. So, Chris Watts, 33 when he murdered his wife Shanann and his two baby children, Celeste and Bella. Now, obviously the case just was a worldwide phenomenon, because how could this seemingly perfect family be anything other than perfect? And it would turn out that there were much deeper strains to the relationship between Chris and Shanann than was being posted on Facebook. Just a few weeks before she met her tragic death, she was posting on Father's Day what a marvellous dad he was and what a fantastic husband he was. But what I want to do in this, and now remember, I'm not diagnosing anybody, this is just my speculation about what his thoughts may have been at four crucial points in the planning and the killing of his entire family. So I'm going to look at the actual planning itself, what he was kind of thinking, what was going through his mind at the time. I'm going to also speculate a little bit about what his thoughts were when he was actually killing his wife, and also when he was killing his two young children. And also, I'm going to look, because there's some kind of really famous footage of when the police are in his house and what potentially was going through his mind, what his thoughts were when they were there. So if we think about the planning and what his thoughts would have been about that, my thoughts about his thoughts would have been that he didn't sign up for this. He's suddenly, within a very short space of time, he's married, he's got two children, he's got another one on the way, he's 33, and Chris Watts, to him, didn't sign up for that. That wasn't kind of his agenda. And suddenly he's a dad, he's a husband, he's a 9-to-5er, he's Mr. Suburbia, and he just didn't sign up for that. That wasn't kind of on his agenda. And with the kids and everything that came with that, of course, that would have limited the space that Shanann and other people had for him, because at his core, it is about him. And Shanann could have put as many glowing Facebook's notices as possible, but it still wasn't enough, because of course they related to having children. It wasn't just about him on his own, and that's what he was craving all the time, the validation, the attention. And quite what went on within their marriage, I don't think anybody will ever know, because of course poor Shanann died so terribly, and he will just say what he wants to say to maybe maintain himself in the media, to maintain interest, because remember, that's what he wanted. So yes, he would have thought, it's not about me. It's suddenly not about me. It's about my two children. It's about our perfect house and our perfect life and our just about to have another child. And it's not about me, and it has to be about me. And those would have been his main motivating factors. And when he was planning killing Shanann, he would have been saying to himself, he would have been justifying it to himself, well, you're to blame. I didn't sign up for this, remember, and you're to blame. So you've got yourself into this situation. Oh, look, it's down to me to have to sort it out, and you're dispensable. I've got a lovely new girlfriend who's hugely interested in me, and that's what really, primarily, everybody should be just interested about me, Chris. And she's devoted to me. She's interested in me. She doesn't have two young children taking lots of attention. And that's why he would have been justifying what he did to Shanann. Now, let's move on to the actual killing of Shanann. He strangled her, which, of course, strangulation, unless it's done from behind, is a very intimate death. It's possibly the most intimate death anybody could possibly have. And as you're taking the life of another, you're looking at them to see actually whether what you're doing is succeeding for a start, but also you're looking and letting them know that they are the last thing that they will see as a living creature. And it's about the power and it's the control and it's about, you will look at me. He had to sedate her beforehand, I believe. And why? Because, well, even though she was 15 weeks pregnant, she could have potentially put up some kind of fight. She may have got to her phone. She may have called her friends, the authorities. So he had to make sure. And this is premeditated. He didn't drug her and strangle her just out of a sudden fit of rage. This was premeditated, as was his plans to leave her and live in the validation of another woman. But he had to get rid of her. And again, remember what I said. He believes that she's to blame because he didn't kind of sign up for the whole daddy business and the super husband business. He didn't sign up for that. And so to him, again, as he's potentially taking the life of this woman, he is justifying it. He's justifying what he believes is correct, is the correct path. He had to get rid of her. So those would have been some of the thoughts as he's actually taking the life of poor Shanann, not just the planning, taking the life of her. And then what he would have thought and what would have, been going through his mind at the point of what he was going to do with his children, because my understanding is that he drove them out to where he was going to leave the bodies, and he obviously did in such a dreadful and horrible way that I'm not going to go into here, and there's plenty of stuff out there. But he would have been thinking, okay, I didn't sign up for this, you're dispensable, and I don't want to be tied down. Even if the worst case scenario happens and I don't get away with what I believe that I'm going to get away with, then I don't want to be tied down. I don't want to be responsible for you two girls growing up. And I don't want you to have this legacy and be able to perhaps appear on chat shows in 10, 20 years' time talking about me as this murdering father. So you are dispensable and you have to be got rid of. And that's exactly what he did. Again, this is all justified. This is all completely, in Chris Watts' minds, completely justified in getting rid of these nuisances, these incumbents of his life. And he talked about, he's done a subsequent interview, I believe, and he talked about, at the time of killing the two girls, that it was the epitome of rage. It was the epitome of anger. It was the epitome of annoyance that he was feeling and directed at these two girls. And maybe he just had to, they were his children after all. Maybe he had to engender that in himself so he could go through with the act. I don't know. Maybe that's what he's trying to say. That's what he had to do. So people would kind of think of him differently, rather than this calculated, cold-hearted, manipulative creature that was just going to drive his two children out to the place that he was going to dispose of their bodies, which of course he did. So his thoughts at those times were justification. And I think he's always got one little eye on the future of the just in case this all goes to court. I'm not expecting it to, but just in case it does, I've got to have certain things on my side that I'm going to be able to say. So the blaming of Shanann, the epitome of rage that he talks about, it's all kind of the stuff that he's going to be banking just in case he has to use it for the future. Now, the last point I wanted to talk about was the footage of him, as one of Shanann's friends had called the police because she was worried about her, and they were going around there to do a welfare check. And of course, there's this famous footage of the police going around and him going around with the police as well.
You have no idea where she would go.
And he would have been thinking at that time, I'm just going to front this out. I'm just going to front this out and I'm going to put on a show. He didn't seem that particularly worried about them. And that's obviously one of the key indicators to the authorities that something's not quite right here. And he tried to blame her. He tried to say, well, she's gone out of town and she's taken the children with her. And could he say where they'd gone? Oh, I'm not entirely sure. That would have been his line about that. But his thoughts at those times would have been thinking, I'll just front this out, and you guys are too stupid to work out what I've done. And that's often what the likes of Chris Watts will think. They have a superior belief about their own abilities to manipulate a situation, to control a situation, and be the powerful one in the situation, whether that's with his two small children, whether his sedated wife, or whether it's with the authorities. He would have been thinking that he was the one that was in charge of that, which of course it turned out not to be. You know, he was laying the seeds of doubt, the doubt about him being the culpable and guilty party. He was laying the seeds of doubt in the authorities' minds that she has taken the children off and potentially harmed them in some way or another. And I believe that's what one of his defences were to begin with in the police interviews. He said that Shanann had killed the two girls, Bella and Celeste, and he was cross with her for doing that and therefore killed them. But that was completely, disproved instantly. So those are my thoughts on the thoughts of Chris Watts at 4 important times: the planning, the killing of Shanann, the killing of the two babies, Celeste and Bella, and the initial police investigation as to where they were when they were doing their welfare checks. And just to summarise, and it's been speculated, and I don't even know at the court case whether he was actually put up as a defence of having some kind of narcissistic personality, but just the fact that he has this arrogance and this grandiosity and this belief in his own actions as being right. Of course, these are all tick lists for people that are very much narcissistic. So those are my thoughts about Chris Watts. Please feel free to comment below, and in the corner down here there's a subscribe button, so if you could please like and subscribe either on that button or just on the YouTube channel itself, that would be really great. And I'll be along again with another Psychology of Crime video, and until then, thanks ever so much for watching, and goodbye.